Yeah.
Morning. Thank you for having us.
It's the conference committee on the T-bill. I think we've agreed to go through the side by side as quickly as possible.
Okay. So for the record, I'm Damon Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. On the first page, the Senate has a legislative findings section that the House did not have. The findings are self-explanatory. Section 1 of the House and Section 2 of the Senate are effectively the same, with minor technical changes between them that are highlighted on the second page of your side-by-side. Section 3 of the Senate bill is another Senate-only section. This is a section that the Senate adds each year, highlighting investments intended to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, fossil fuel use, and save households in Vermont money. Moving on to page 4. Sections 4 and 5 are tied together and they run over a couple pages here. This is Senate provisions moving $1.75 million out of the TIP fund to pay for bridges in section 5, and then taking 1.7 million of the money of the transportation fund money freed up within the bridges to use for statewide district leveling in section 4. Moving on to page 6, there are several deleted Senate sections here that we can skip over. Sections 13 and 14 are Senate-only sections that would authorize the issuance of transportation infrastructure bonds in fiscal years 2028 through 2032 in an amount approved by the General Assembly. They require review from the Capital Debt Affordability Commission and the Treasurer's Office. They also require a report from the Agency of Transportation at the beginning of next year as part of the FY28 transportation program, identifying eligible projects that could be bonded with a comparison of time and cost on those projects. Section 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the bottom of that page in the House bill, and sections 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29 on the Senate bill are all the same. So I will skip over those. Same with House sections 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, and Senate sections 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. House sections 14 and 15 were deleted. Section 16 and section 36 are effectively the same. This is Drive Electric Vermont. The difference being that the Senate added the remaining $50,000 of transportation fund monies that were freed up to the Drive Electric Vermont appropriation. Sections 8 and 9 relate to the extension of the power to sell the state Caledonia County State Airport. Those are the same. One thing I will note is that in the conference committee report, we will need to add a retroactive effective date for section 18 because that time period ran out on May 1st. Section 15 was a Senate findings section on the mileage-based user fee. Moving on to page 10, we get into the mileage-based user fee. This is section 19 in the House bill, section 16 in the Senate bill. There's a slight difference in the headings because the House version has a road usage charge for EV rental cars that the Senate version does not. The House version includes a purpose section that the Senate version does not because of the findings and intent section that I mentioned above. In the definition section on the bottom of page 10, top of page 11.
We don't have page numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry. 19 in the House, 16 in the Senate, section 4302 in the House, 4301 in the Senate. The main differences are that the House uses the term BEV, the Senate uses the term covered vehicle, and the Senate also adds a mileage reporting period definition to capture newly registered vehicles. On section 4303 in the House, 4302 in the Senate. Just got their audio on. Okay. There are a number of differences here. Because of the time, I will be quick. The House version provides for payment at the end of the mileage reporting period. The Senate version would provide for payment at the end of the mileage reporting period, as well as a pay-as-you-go option, estimated advance payments similar to estimated income tax payments, although much less complicated, and a flat rate option. The House version requires payment within 45 days. The Senate version requires payment by your next registration. And the Senate provides some language addressing newly registered vehicles as well. Moving on to the next page, you'll see additional highlighted Senate language. That's all what I was just mentioning. And then going on to the next page after that, the highlighted language for the Senate continues all of those additional pieces. Calculation of the mileage-based user fee is essentially the same. The Senate has reorganized it a little bit. And then and added in provisions related to the pay-as-you-go program. But otherwise, they're substantially the same. Moving on to the next page, there is also a cap at the very top on the Senate side of $178 for the mileage-based user fee. The House version does not have a cap. The amount of the mileage-based user fee is 1.4 cents per mile in both versions. And then both versions provide for review of the amount assessed and refunds on overpayments. Both versions provide essentially the same language with just changes in terminology for required reports. That's annual inspections and odometer disclosures. The House version, section 4305 provides for interest up to 18% of the amount of the unpaid fee. The Senate version does not provide for interest. The House version provides for a penalty rate equal to the 98th percentile of the miles traveled by BEVs, which is estimated to be $375. Because of the cap in the Senate version, the default rate is $178. There's additional clarification around when that would come into play, including failure to have the vehicle inspected. And it does provide in the Senate version that if within 90 days after the date on which the vehicle's registration is renewed, the individual obtains an inspection, they can get a credit for any mileage that would have resulted in an amount under the default rate against their next mileage-based user fee. Section 4307, suspension or renewals the same in both, except for the terminology differences between BEV and covered vehicle. Essentially, if you don't pay your mileage-based user fee, you can't renew your registration, or they can suspend your registration. The powers of the commissioner are the same in both. The appeals are the same in both, except for changes in cross-references. And then, as I mentioned before, the House has a subchapter providing a road usage charge for rental vehicles, which is essentially 9% of the rental charge, or equal to 1% of the rental charge, meaning that the charge on those vehicles will be a total of 9%. It's under the purchase and use tax, or it's tied to the purchase and use tax. The next section, which amends the EV infrastructure fee and changes it to just the infrastructure fee, is the same in both. Moving on to the next page, the transitions are different. The House version only addresses BEVs that are registered in Vermont on December 31st of this year. And the House provides a flat $89 credit for those vehicles against the amount of the MBUF. The Senate provides for vehicles whose registration is renewed or are first registered in 2027 or 28 to pay an $89 per year road usage charge. So if you get a 1-year registration, it's 89, 2 years, it's 178. The Senate then provides that road usage charge or the infrastructure fee paid in 2026 or 2025, if it covers that mileage reporting period, would be applied to the initial MBUF payment. Senate also provides an option for paying $178 flat fee. Effectively, in all cases for the Senate, you'll have a bill of no more than $89. The House version, because it did not include the pay-as-you-go option, included a report on how to implement it. That's not in the Senate version because they included that as an option. The Senate included an outreach, education, and user experience feedback provision with report back to the legislature. In the Senate, Section 20 is a mileage-based user fee transition plan and report. It includes requiring a plan for transitioning to include plug-in hybrid, hybrid electric, and fuel-efficient light-duty motor vehicles by January 1, 2029, and all light-duty motor vehicles by January 1, 2031, as well as methods for tracking out-of-state miles traveled, so that individuals will only be charged for miles in Vermont. It requires 3 reports back. The first is the end of next January 2027. And that is the plan for the transition with a recommendation for legislative action. The second report would be due on or before July 30th, 2028, and that's a draft of the federally required plan for rolling out the mileage-based user fee to vehicles. And then finally, on September 15th, 2028, or by September 15th, 2028, a final version of the federally required plan. In the Senate, Section 21 and 22 expand the mileage-based user fee to hybrid and plug-in hybrid vehicles and eliminate the cap on the amount of the MBUF. And then in Section 23, the default rate of 178 is raised to 375, so it effectively becomes the same as in the House proposal. House Section 23 provided for a transfer of transportation infrastructure fund money into the transportation fund. So that should have actually been a little bit, oh no, we're in the right spot here. So, and this is essentially the alternative to sections 4 and 5 of the Senate version. The section 28, or I'm sorry, 39 in the Senate version is the public transit demand response, non-emergency medical transports. And this is authorizing the usage of $300,000 that were appropriated in the Senate's version of the big bill to support these volunteer drivers for the non-emergency medical transports. Sections 40 and 41 in the Senate deal with real-time data on public electric vehicle chargers and requiring that data to be available. Sections 42 and 43 provide basic ground rules to allow for the installation of chargers at common interest communities and condominiums. Section 46 is a report back on the cost to implement intelligent speed assistance in Vermont. This is a new program for individuals who are repeat speeders or have been speeding at particularly high speeds. Section 47, sections 47, 48, 47 through 55 are corrections that were in the Senate version, where currently the law provides for the Public Utility Commission to have jurisdiction over these sections. The Public Utility Commission no longer has jurisdiction over these areas of law. So these were proposals to correct that. As some of you have heard, there's been additional testimony since then. So some of these have been proposed by the agencies named for repeal instead of amendment. Section 56 in the Senate bill is a report back on vehicle history reports. This is your Carfax or Bumper.com or Experian report on vehicles. And it's a report back on the accuracy of these and whether there are ways to provide additional consumer protections. And then that brings us to the effective dates. I think I ran a little over. Sorry about that.
You're about 5 minutes over. As usual.
I'll do better next time. I'm sorry. All right. I yield.
Yeah. And then I think the agency has some technical changes that they wanted to bring up first, so that's what I heard. We moved them in and let them run through that with us. And we'll probably have about at the end of that.
Sounds good.
Is that all right?
You guys had too much time in your hands, apparently.
But
You had to know what's trying to get.
we had it built for 2 weeks before it had to be out of here. How many months did you have to do?
We were efficient. Apparently we need to keep it another month.
Morning, for the record, Pat Murphy, the Agency of Transportation. Thank you all for the months or weeks, that you've been working on this, to help, establish this program, with the agency, which we do feel is important for the long-term, health and transportation fund. The very nature of this program is such that as we get into the details of implementation, there are likely to be things that come up that weren't necessarily anticipated by the language that we've drafted to this point. And we expect fully that when we come back next year, that there will be certain things on the edges of the program that we would need to change. And the memo that you have this morning is representative that there's just a couple of small changes that we think would make for a smoother implementation, January 2027. But in recognition too that most people won't interact necessarily with the mileage fee until 2028, when their first mileage reporting period has closed. So this has been designed in a way that will look familiar to people when they first encounter it. We'll have more communications, a strategy that is in the language that you all have drafted to bring back that is a part of our grant work with FHWA. But I wanted to just dive into there are a couple of technical changes, and then there are considerations if you make particular policy decisions here. So the first is really around you see this okay? Yeah. The first is really around the timing of when these become due. So in the language, when a mileage reporting period has closed, then that amount of the mileage fee would become due at the point of registration renewal. In order to make things easier for the user of the system and for DMV, we'd like for that invoice that goes to people for registration renewal to also include their mileage fee at that point. What that means is that you can account for, because these are sent in advance, generally about 45 to 60 days in advance, you can account for the fee that might be applied, very near to your registration renewal. And so this language that we proposed would allow for somebody who has a mileage reporting period that ends within 60 days of registration renewal, not to owe that amount at that next registration, but at the subsequent registration. Are there any questions on that?
You have proposed language.
And the proposed language is on the second page.
That's it.
We can get to that in a second. The second, a technical change is just really clarifying. There are a couple of instances where credits could be applied. If somebody, as Danny just walked through, if somebody had not obtained an inspection before going to registration renewal, but then later within 90 days of renewal obtained an inspection, they could have that default flat fee, or whatever the difference between the default flat fee and their actual mileage fee should have been credited back to them. And then there are instances where people are paying an infrastructure fee now in 2026 that might extend to 2028, up to 2028, or the road usage charge starting in 2027 and 2028 that might apply to their first mileage reporting period. So this is just clarifying that in the meantime, the expectation is still that people are following what is in current statute and getting their annual vehicle safety inspection, so that we have the data that we're relying on for this program. And so this is just clarifying how credits will be applied in the case that somebody doesn't obtain that inspection, and that therefore the dominant reading data. And there's language for that also included below. The other two policy questions I've not provided language for. This is for the committee to decide. Obviously, there is language in the Senate version that goes beyond the House, in including all hybrids in 2029. And there are issues that will come up with that, because we do have in statute right now EV infrastructure fee that applies to plug-in hybrids. So you would want to clarify how that would be treated, likely to be repealed. And then although the 2029 language currently has the capped fee at $178, it does not also repeal the $178 flat fee elsewhere in the statute, which would effectively act as a cap. And so you would want to address that and align the two, both the default flat fee and the just flat fee option. So those are two questions that for your consideration in the discussion. Do you want to walk through the language that's been proposed?
Might as well.
Okay. So the first is just defining this 60-day sort of freeze period that will make things easier for the user and for our development with the DMV systems. And it essentially just notwithstands the first section that says the owner shall remit the amount due on or before the next required registration renewal, the termination of the covered vehicle, or sale, or the termination of the lease of that covered vehicle. And it, whatever the soonest of those are. And it just adds that in the case of this registration, the mileage reporting period ending within 60 days of the registration renewal, you would then have the ability to pay at the subsequent registration.
Is that like lost revenue, or like, I'm just trying to think of funding flow, so they have to make up that 60 days that's frozen on the back end? And just do, or am I missing?
It's not, it's just allowing that to not be due at that registration renewal. It's not like freezing how many miles are being counted. It's just to be able to invoice with the renewal notice, to have people be able to read, okay, I owe $89, for the registration fee, and I have a, $65 balance on my mileage fee. I can pay that off on registration renewal whenever it might be, whether it's in person or online. Because the notice given is generally between 45 and 60 days. We want to be able to allow for that to go out and not have a reporting period that closes in that period of time. Need to be paid at that, within days of it closing. And then that also allows for you all have a 45 day period to appeal. So then if there is any objection to how the odometer reading was inputted, somebody would be able to appeal before having to pay that. So we think it'll just help. It's not, it doesn't relate to revenue in any way, although it would defer some of that to the next reporting period. So this language here is just clarifying that, after a default flat fee, you can be credited the difference between what the mileage actually ends up being if you obtain an inspection 90 days after registration renewal. But that really depends on you having inspected the vehicle or had it inspected in the prior year. And so if you don't have that prior inspection, you're not actually able to close the mileage reporting period. And so you'd still be on the hook for that flat fee. And then we'd have to kind of reset where that reporting period begins. So it's just clarifying here, provided that sufficient odometer reading data exists for the commissioner to determine the difference. Meaning that you need two readings, not just the one, within 90 days afterwards. And then lastly, there's this section on mileage-based user fee, the initial transition. And this, again, it's just a simple caveat that provided that all required annual safety inspections have been obtained in the manner prescribed by the commissioner, the amount of the covered vehicle's mileage-based user fee calculated shall be reduced by, whether it's a road usage charge fee that was invoiced in 27 or 28, or the infrastructure fee in 26. And that is the gist of what we're proposing for some just technical changes.
Just a question, and I think I know the answer. It's like, obviously at an inspection, you're getting all the mileage, and if there are transactions, selling a vehicle or buying a vehicle, that mileage at that point is where the mileage reporting period would start, maybe up until your first inspection, or yeah.
So
that'll be transparent to people that.
yes, yeah. So it's laid out in a way that it's not just an annual inspection that would start or close a mileage reporting period. It could also be a new registration where you have an odometer reading on the initial sale documents, or it could be, as you say, the sale of the vehicle at the end, or just the cancellation of a registration. Thank you. Sure.
First, I think if we could get a tracking document from you, Damien, that, there's a whole bunch in here that we all, is all the same.
Yep.
And if we could group things by category that, there's differences in bonding, there's differences in, a whole bunch of the early MBUF stuff. For electric vehicles, I don't think there's disagreement. You know, there's technical changes, but there's not. If we could group by the larger areas that, and we get a tracking document that excludes the stuff that we, agree with. And it can be more, not as wordy as this, but on a page, so we can.
Yeah, so you don't need the actual text so much as the bullet points of where the house is, where the sun is.
Yep.
Okay.
If there, I know that we're, not available in person tomorrow or and Friday. Is there any available like on Zoom or call? Or when's the easiest time for that?
Mornings are the best.
So mornings are the best or,
Mornings are available.
okay.
I would hope though that we can meet again. I don't know if we can or not. We meet again today. We're all on other conference committees in floor 1. I mean, the floor 10.
And we have conference committee
Budget.
at 1:15. For the budget
And that's great.
I'm open in the afternoon.
We might be able to do something in the afternoon, but let us check with, have our conference committee this morning on the budget. And then, going in tomorrow morning, what's your travel schedule?
I'll be ready for 8 or 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I think it'll work. We're involved at 9.
We do 8:30 and again,
I don't think so. I'll confirm that if you're a little later.
if you confirm that,
A little bit later than that.
we'll check. Because they're trying to schedule the budget conference committees at 9 and 1:15. So
Okay.
that kind of for us, and we'll, and maybe we can start talking about some areas that, you know, we do have 2 different sections that you can stuff.
And I think we're going to be caught up on speed on our end too, because there's a lot of new stuff obviously that we haven't seen and, you know, just testimonies hearing from the PUC, you know, what's on the back end.
It would be helpful if you
Yeah.
look through and if
Yeah.
maybe some of the smaller stuff that aren't those big areas, if you could say
Yeah, good, yeah.
some of the nature of this, the agency has ideas after we've all done work and they go, oh, kind of like this.
Sure.
So if you could look at that, then we go through that, but we'll try to figure out when here. If 8:30 or 9 doesn't work, is lunchtime out?
Lunchtime's workable. Tomorrow we do a 9:15 for the budget conference.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that, yeah, it
We might be able
would do us much good to meet at 9.
Right.
If we met at lunch though tomorrow,
That's possible. Yeah.
okay, okay, why don't we plan on lunchtime and if you can get him a Zoom link, then we can,
So 12 o'clock.
yeah.
Okay.
And
We're still trying for this afternoon.
Yeah, we could maybe do it between our, we have tentatively, well, 1:15 today for the budget, and then again at 3:30. They might be short, like we don't might need a half an hour in the break, so there might, but I'm not sure.
let us have our meeting this morning.
We have floor at 1 o'clock and there's some available for the afternoon. And then we got to figure out what the purpose of the next meeting would
Yeah.
be. you know,
Right.
so, yeah.
Why don't you let us get through and we'll see if they're in. And maybe we can get something from Damien that focuses on the big areas.
Yeah.
So,
So let me get that.